Good morning. Today I'm going to make another attempt to give back to my friends in the YouTube community. About a week ago I noticed a continuous pool of water around one of my sprinkler heads. I've got a leaking sprinkler head. It's a low volume, continuous leak 24 hours a day for the last week. I need to fix it. I'm going to walk through a discussion as to basics of home sprinkler operation, and then we'll walk through the details as to how I approach this problem. Okay, you can see this pool of water here, all around this sprinkler head alone. We're leaking money here, and so it's worthwhile fixing right away. Now, a first observer would say, well, it's only the one sprinkler head, so that's got to be the problem. It's got to be the problem with this sprinkler head. But if you think that, you've got a fundamental misunderstanding as to how this system works. Now, this next page is a schematic of a typical irrigation system. On the left is indoors, and on the right is outdoors, with the blue wall connoting the building wall. You have household water on the left, and an indoor shutoff valve just beside the wall, leading to the outside, and then very close to that is a cleanout. And of course, the purpose of the cleanout is mostly in the wintertime, just before it freezes over, you hook up compressed air to that cleanout and blow all the water out so you don't get water freezing in the lines. Now I want you to notice the red piping. The red piping is pressurized 24/7. 24 hours a day, that red line is pressurized. The S's connote solenoid valves, and beyond the S's are the individual zones subserved by those solenoid valves. Now, we've got a problem. We've got a leaking sprinkler head. It's leaking 24 hours a day. And so you know there must be some connection to the high pressure system. And you also know which zone that sprinkler head is in. So you have a pretty good idea where the problem is. It's at that solenoid valve. Now here's a question for you. If really the problem is in a solenoid valve, why is it that only one sprinkler head is leaking? Why don't all three leak? Of course, the answer is that the piping in each zone is only charged with water when it's actively transmitting water. When those zones are quiescent, air replaces water, and so the pipes are largely replaced by air. Trickling down that air-filled pipe is a small stream of water, which always goes to the lowest point. And so what you find is that the lowest sprinkler head gets most of the excess water, and the upper two sprinkler heads get very little. Now, of course, I've left out one critical structure on this schematic drawing, the microprocessor. This is the problem solver. I'll discuss that next. There are two fundamental problems here. The first is that you want your sprinkler system to sprinkle at certain times of the week without having to be turned on and off. And the second, of course, is that there's not enough water pressure to feed the whole system all at once. And so out of that has evolved the theory of zones. In our yard, there are 4 zones. And we know that the sprinkler head of concern is in zone 2. Now this is a microprocessor, and it takes AC power and converts it to low voltage DC power that goes out here. There's no water in this side of the system. These wires go out to the solenoids, which turn the zones on and off. Now, if you're new to a home sprinkler system, what you want to do is you want to explore your yard and figure out which zones are which. Now, I've written on a little card here the zones and a brief description as to where the zones are, and I've written down the timing in terms of how long they stay on for, what the sequence of events is. And so if I lose power to my microprocessor, I can reprogram the system without having to reinvent the wheel. All right, this is where water pressure comes out of the house. Every system will have a shutoff valve inside the house. And water pressure comes out through this galvanized pipe, and this is the access point where we blow the system out every year. So water comes out here. We've got continuous pressure water here that goes out to the control zones. So this is my second control panel here. This is the front yard, so this will be the one that we're dealing with. And we've got 3 zones that we're dealing with here. Okay, so here are my 3 zones. And to open these up manually, all you do is you rotate them counterclockwise by about 3/4 of a turn. You can see our sprinkler heads are working properly and functioning fine. Turn those off. So the sprinkler head that's involved is this one right here. And so what we need to do, we've got continuous pressure on this side going to each of the 3 zones. And so the problem is we've got a leak from continuous pressure down this particular zone. So we need to get at this particular head. So let's take it off. Of course, the first thing you want to do is to relieve the pressure in the system. And so I've turned it off at the house level so we don't have any extra water coming from the house. And now I'm going to relieve the pressure by opening up this valve. And that just allows that system to drain out a little bit. There's still water in here, but it won't be under pressure. Now, ideally what you'd want to do is to take this whole thing off, but I don't want to dig the whole thing up right now. And so I'm going to try and take this off without digging underneath or relieving it, and we'll have to see how that goes. Now, in an effort to be as careful as I can to get as little water as I can in the field of view, I'm going to relieve the pressure at the flush out point so that there's as little water as possible in the system before I start to work on it. Now I want to try and clean as much debris out of here as I can so I don't get anything near the control box. So some of these have screws that you screw down. As it turns out, this one just rotates counterclockwise. We'll just see what we come out with here. Okay, I took the whole apparatus apart and cleaned it off carefully, put it back together again with the hope that I wouldn't have to replace the diaphragm. But at the end of the day, I'm still leaking a significant amount of water. So we're going to try replacing the diaphragm and see if that works. Okay, this is the second time I've been in here. The first time I'm not able to show you because my head's so fat I got in the way of the video camera, and so I wasn't able to show it. But basically what I did the last time is I took the whole apparatus off here, cleaned it out really well with the hope that there would be some piece of debris lodged near the diaphragm, and I'd be able to clean that out and problem would be solved. But as it turned out, that wasn't the case. I've put it all back together again. I've got the same problem. So we're going to have to change the diaphragm. This is the new diaphragm here. And you'll see we're going to change it out, and hopefully the problem will be solved on replacement of the diaphragm. If not, I may have to change the solenoid. So we'll take it one step at a time. I've turned the water back off and we're ready to go. Okay, so we'll open it up a little bit so that the remaining water can go out by gravity. The older, different style of valve has a series of screws that you use to undo to take this all off, and you'd put the screws back on in the same pattern that you would with, say, putting on an automobile tire to make sure it goes on straight. But in this particular case, this particular design just has a big circular screw that you undo like this. So we'll undo this. Shouldn't get water everywhere. Here's a ring, and then this just comes off. And we'll take that screw out, that spring. And then there's the diaphragm underneath here. Just pry that off. Get this old diaphragm off. Okay, now the new diaphragm seems to be pretty clean. and then the spring. And now the solenoid. Okay, our problem is solved. We've just changed out the diaphragm on a solenoid as a treatment for a low volume continuous irrigation leak in a home irrigation system. Thanks for watching.